Hi, my name is Marcus, and I'm here on behalf of Fracture Sounds and myself to show you our brand new sample library, Lighthouse Piano, in context, as well as answer a couple of questions that I've seen on YouTube, because it just so happens that I am filming the day after the sample library came out, and I've been keeping a close eye on the YouTube comment section. And I thought this video would be a good opportunity to answer some of the questions that you guys have had. Namely, why do we need another piano sample library? It's a good question, and it's a question that I've had myself in the past. And there's kind of two parts to the answer, really. There's a more general answer, and then there's an answer concerning my piano specifically, both of which I hope to address in this video, whilst showing you the music that I wrote for the trailer for this sample library. So hopefully this will be helpful for you, and if not, maybe it'll be entertaining, I don't know. Let's get into it. More so than any other instrument, in my opinion, the piano has the most variation from not just one make to another or one type to another, but like the same model of piano from the same maker will have huge differences between it and a supposedly identical piano, depending on where they've travelled over the past 20, 30 years, what kind of climate they've been kept in, and how they've been restored. And in the case of a 100-year-old piano, well, forget it. And I think that's what's so exciting about it. It's like a pair of shoes. You can choose it depending on the style you want on a specific day. Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track. It's not just a personal choice based on what you like, but it's also a choice based on what kind of genre or genres you write in. If you love your kind of like Olafur Arnalds, Niels Fram kind of music, and you know that that's what you're going to be writing, I mean, maybe not forever, but like for the foreseeable future, then there's no question about it. You want to probably get Woodchester, because that is a piano that is felted, geared towards that kind of music specifically. It's going to sound better at doing that music alone than my piano might. And on the other hand, if you love your big piano concertos with a symphony orchestra underneath and you know you want that bright Steinway kind of sound, at least for the foreseeable future, then I'd probably get Spotlight. And that is okay. I won't be too offended. But hopefully that explains why we have multiple piano libraries and why we keep making piano libraries, because the fact is we keep finding pianos that have different characteristics. Homestead is a great example of this. This is a piano where it's like perfectly encapsulates that kind of Bon Iver type sound, that real kind of cabin in the woods kind of feel to it, which my piano most definitely does not. That's why that piano exists, and that's why we're going to keep sampling pianos. Hopefully that explains that, and hopefully that answers the questions that were in the YouTube comment section yesterday. So, as to why you might pick my piano, I am really proud of how this library has come out and how it's really captured the reason that I bought the Blüthner in the first place. It's because it just has an ability to do a bit of everything, and I absolutely love how it sounds like a felt piano when you play it really quietly. It just almost sounds like a harp. And that's why Fracture Sounds asked if I'd like it to be turned into a sample library. So, on that note, let's have a look now at how I've used it in this trailer music. And indeed, the techniques that I'm about to show you, you can use on any of the Fracture Sounds libraries, because they all, since last year when we had our big piano update, they all have the response page where you can adjust the timbre and volume scaling. And I have to confess that only now, having worked on my own piano and playing around with this, have I realised just how incredibly useful these controls are. And I'm going to show you how I've used them in this trailer music, because, you know, this is a piece of music that's really trying to show off every angle of the piano in as little time as possible. You can do the same if you own Spotlight, or indeed Woodchester to an extent. Glacier Keys, Midnight Grand, they all have these controls and they are insanely useful. So let's have a quick listen to the piece of music and then we'll talk about that. So I'm now going to talk through what I've done to stretch this library to its absolute limit. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of the time I probably wouldn't do this. I am very happy loading up this piano on default and then using it in my work. But of course, this isn't just any old piece of my own work. This is to show off as much as possible what this library is capable of. And so I've used basically every technique in the book to get the most out of it. I wanted to show that it can do a whole bunch of different sounds and yet still sound like the same piano. And I also want to let it be known that for the sake of honesty, none of these piano tracks have any EQ or third-party plugins in them. I probably will boost the volume a little bit for the sake of YouTube because it can't be too quiet. So it's going to maybe sound a little bit more compressed than the version that you're going to load up will. But hopefully that's like in a good way, This one track here has a bit of tape delay, but in this case it's more of just a percussive. So I'm not going to bother talking too much about that. Let's look at how the piece opens. So, as you probably heard and now have seen, I wanted to start the piece off with the kind of more conventional felted piano setup. I would say, like, if I had to describe the piano briefly, that's what it's really good at. It's the sound of a felted piano without the limitations. And if we go to the response page, of course, we can see that we're not using the upper dynamic layers. And then transitioning as smoothly as possible into the default snapshot, which uses all of the dynamic layers. And to go from that one to that one seamlessly was just a case of getting these velocities kind of just so you don't really notice the transition. After that, we have a little bit of what I'm going to just call manual key noise removal. So this piano is not a spring chicken. It's nearly 120 years old, 119 years old this year. That's part of the reason that we sampled it. It's not perfect, and that's why it's good. However, for this particular section, I'm playing the same notes in rapid succession, like a lot of Bs here. If you are going for a concert grand piano kind of sound and you want it to sound a bit more like it's been recorded with the mics further back in a concert space, less of the intimate details that you get from a felt piano setup, say, then you want to kind of lean into that by going for the body mics. But also in the settings page, have a play around with that sample start slider, because you might find that actually if you bring this down, which I know is sometimes a bit confusing moving it to the right, but like actually cutting into the sample slightly, the instrument becomes more responsive, yes. It's less of the full recording, yes, but it sometimes sounds like a newer and more tight kind of piano, basically. So that's what I've done here. I've brought the sample start down, which is kind of going against what I keep repeating in order to lean into that. Of course, bear in mind, I did do this first, bring the key noise down to nothing, and then I was like, I can still hear a little bit too much clicking. Let's now cut into the sample slightly. We actually continue with this piano through the rest of the piece. And then moving ahead to the sort of big climax. I actually did play this in to the click. I did do multiple takes, but then I didn't do any kind of like monkeying around with it. I didn't quantize it or anything because I wanted it to feel like a real live performance. And of course, if you quantize it too rigorously, it then ends up sounding a bit robotic, especially for something like this repeating ostinato here. Right, so I think it's a good time to talk about that response page a little bit more, because the thing to remember about this is that it's not like you're not changing the library by adjusting this, you're just changing how it reacts to how you're playing. You could do what this does by manually adjusting your velocities. So you want the lower dynamic layers, you can load up all your velocities and maybe do that, and you'd get the same kind of thing as doing that. But that's easier. So I'd recommend trying it. Play around a little bit. Be like, how does that feels kind of good. I actually want to stress as well that my keyboard, which everybody always asks what keyboard it is, it's a Casio PX S1000 It's not that great a MIDI keyboard, I'm going to be honest. The action isn't very good. I bought it because it looks nice, but it also has a real problem where it's really difficult to get up into the high, like I'd say like 110 and above velocity. It's really flipping difficult. Partly that is because, of course, you're sat kind of wrong. Like a piano would normally be down here. We have to compensate when we're working at a desk. We've got to have the piano further away, so I never can get my full weight of my arms on it. But even so, this piano is quite tricky to get up to 127. With this library, and with every library that Fracture Sounds has that has a response page, I can now do this to push the higher velocities a little bit more easily when I play. You know, if you want a piano where it's like, okay, I want it to have this range of dynamics from here to here. That's the range of dynamics that I want. How easily do I want to get the versus the sounds? Sampling is great for that kind of thing because you can then get those absolute incredibly quiet layers. But now with this curve, or indeed by doing this, you get them no matter how hard you play. Now that might be a little bit too soft for me, so I'm going to bring the max back up. Let's have a listen now. Yeah, oh, that's really lovely and soft. And that's what I love about the timbre page. You're still getting the sound of the Blüthner, but you're just choosing, it's like, okay, I want loud Blüthner today or I want quiet Blüthner today. It's just the sound of the piano. Which bit of it do you want to use? That's what I love about the timbre scaling. And I love it so much that I'm losing my voice. So let's go the other way now. I'm going to bring it right up. We're going to go concert grand piano. Bring the volume scaling down now so that we get a bit more variety. Okay, so in regards to what I was saying earlier about this keyboard, I'm going to go to the curve and bias it to the left so that we can get to those top dynamic layers a bit more easily. Just bring the Atmos down. There we go. Let's go back to the piece of music now and have a little listen to some of the other things that I've done. We've got the Harmonium, of course. I am so thrilled that the team did this for me. You know, I actually recorded this one myself, so it's just one mic position. And to see it like this with an actual dynamic controller that you can use your mod wheel for, and to be able to get hard and soft attacks depending on velocity, so handy. Virtually the same instrument as an accordion, just sort of like laid out differently. It's got a very kind of like nautical, seafaring type sound. I just think it's great personally. We have this in the background a couple of times. It comes in for like this first sort of crescendo here. Along with a bunch of the Atmos layers from the piano. Now, I originally was thinking that I was going to use some string formations for this piece, but my little snapshot here, Ocean Orchestra, actually kind of did everything that I needed it to do in that regard. So good. I won't go over everything again, but I will draw your attention to a couple of things worth noting, both for this library and any other library that uses the Atmos layers. Even though the colour is mostly aimed at affecting the raw piano samples, it still works on the Atmos layers too. So you can get some really lovely effects by doing that. C Mist, the layer, is just like a lovely kind of string sound, basically. But again, you can turn the colour down and make it softer. And if I'm not mistaken, these Atmos layers are also affected by timbre shift. So let's have a listen again. Yeah. So there's a lot of variety and fun to be had in playing around with those things. And in some of my other snapshots, like I think water lanterns, yeah, you can see that I've used this. Let's have a listen to water lanterns because I don't think I played it in the walkthrough. Very proud of these. These are the ones that I made myself, and there's going to be a video coming about them, hopefully very soon. So if you're interested to hear how I made those sounds, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and there'll be a video coming out about that very soon. One of the perks of having my own sample library was that for the first and probably only time ever, I got to choose my own bundle, which I had loads of ideas for what it could be, and then I decided let me just make the trailer music and then see what I use in that. Here's what I used. Soft String Soloists. By default, I like to have these on center stereo mics. Key switch to the gestures articulation there. And then our final build to the outro, an Eldenvale strings. So yeah, I love the center stereo mics for Soft String Soloists. It gives them a tiny bit more grit, some more direct sound, reminiscent of folk music, which I really enjoy. Couple this with the very warm and lush sound of Eldenvale strings, and you get like the best of both worlds in my opinion. You get the warmth and the size of the Eldenvale string ensemble, but then you get a bit more definition from Soft String Soloists. Wooden flute. Our kind of percussion section is made up of a few things. I'm going to start with the dulcimer because we hear that firstly with the felt. And then after a key switch, we then hear it without the felt. Nice. One of my favourite instruments in Eldenvale now is the bouzouki. Again, more of a rhythm thing than melody. The bouzouki isn't really an instrument that you want to be playing in B major in. It's like not really that kind of length, and you can hear the root key selector is really working hard to kind of make that happen. But not regardless, even though it's maybe not like ideal, it still sounds great in my opinion. And if we hear it in context, it's really adding to that driving momentum that we're hearing at the end. And this is further emphasised by the use of metals and a tambourine here. Let's have a listen to those quickly. There's a tambourine. Oh, I can see I put a low cut on that to really make it quite bright sounding there. Church bells as well. Incredible instrument to have. Nice. And then last but not least, our Eldenvale deep drums. Now I have mucked around with this quite substantially to make this as epic as I possibly could. Fundamentally, if we look up here in the top right of the contact window, I have pitch shifted the deep drums deeper down by 5 semitones. This is always worth having a play around with percussion. It's kind of fun if nothing else, and sometimes you get some really fat sounds out of your instruments by doing it. Woof. I have cheated a little bit. There is a bit of extra bass added on with Logic's EQ. One more instrument, not included in the bundle for obvious reasons. It's Blueprint bass guitar. Yeah, pretty clean sound that, and I think that goes well with the piano. Let's just hear the two of them together. It does conclude its business, however, for that last kind of hurrah at the end there, which I think was probably a good move, because you want it to be part of the piece, but also for the sake of the demo as well. Don't want to like fool people into thinking that the piano has more bass than it really does, so it's important to make sure that it came in quite distinctly midway through as its own instrument. So there we go. Hopefully this video was useful if you're thinking about picking up a copy of this library, or indeed to those of you who have already done so, thank you so very much. I hope it's of good service to you. Personally speaking, I'm always going to need multiple piano libraries, and I don't think it's possible to ever get a piano library that does everything you need it to do perfectly. But I would say this one comes pretty close. Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing to this Fracture Sounds YouTube channel for more videos in the future, including how I made the Atmos layers for this library. Leave a comment down below if you feel like it. I'll be answering them all, as I have a bit of a vested interest in this one. But otherwise, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.